King Kong, Chuck Norris, and the Louisiana Purchase are all on this day. Welcome back to On This Day. Today's date is March 10th, 2022. It is the 69th day of the year. There are 296 days left. It is the 10th Thursday in the 11th week and the 80th day of winter. We got 10 days left until spring. What's that, like next Sunday? A week from Sunday, I should say. If today's your birthday, you're still a Pisces. Today is National Pack Your Lunch Day. National Pack Your Lunch Day on March 10th encourages everyone across the country to take their lunch to work, school, or wherever they're spending their day. Mickey Mouse was the first licensed character to appear on a lunchbox in 1935. In 1950, Hopalong Cassidy Lunchbox was the first lunchbox based on a television show. I had several of these. I'm gonna date myself, but most of you know I'm over 50. One of my favorites, and I remember to this day, one of those metal lunchboxes, was the Hair Bear Bunch. This was a Hanna-Barbera cartoon, I think, that only lasted like 2 seasons. It was bears that lived in the zoo that were like hippies. It was weird. While I was researching that show, the Hair Bear Bunch, I looked up, and one of the people that was the voice for this cartoon was the guy who played Otis Campbell on the Andy Griffith Show. You know, the drunk that would come in and check himself into the jail cell because he was too drunk. His real name was Hal Smith, and he had been an actor for quite some time. The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Death Valley Days, Hogan's Heroes, The Lucy Show, things like that. And then I started looking at most of it. He was a voice actor for so many different things, from Gumby to Scooby-Doo to The Jungle Book, Bugs Bunny and the Roadrunner, Huckleberry Finn. He was also on Petticoat Junction. This man worked forever, and I only knew him as Otis the Drunk. I didn't know that he was on all these different shows. I mean, even Robin Hood, Yogi's Gang, Speed Buggy, Hong Kong Phooey, Davy and Goliath, Heathcliff. He did a Garfield and Friends episode in 1994. This is how long this man worked, and I mean, he didn't miss a beat. He had several things every single year since the 1930s. But he recorded a Garfield and Friends 4 days before he died in 1994. I'm not really sure how we went from Pack Your Lunch Day to Otis the Drunk from the Andy Griffith Show, but here we are. All right, let's see what else March 10th has given us. 1804, the Louisiana Purchase is formalized. Formalized doesn't sound right. Is that a right word? Formalized? Becomes a formal thing. It becomes complete. 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo is ratified. If you don't know what that is, this ended the Mexican-American War in favor of the United States. The war had begun almost 2 years earlier, in May of 1846, over a territorial dispute involving Texas. The treaty added an additional 525,000 square miles to the United States territory, including land that makes up all or parts of present-day Arizona, California, Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming. 1891, Almond Stroger patents the Stroger switch, a device which led to the automation of the telephone circuit switching. 1922, Mahatma Gandhi is arrested in India, tried for sedition and sentenced to 6 years in prison, but gets out after 2 years because he had to have an appendix surgery. 1933, the Long Beach earthquake affects the greater Los Angeles area, leaving 108 people dead. So I grew up not too far from Long Beach, kind of between Long Beach and LA, sort of. I grew up in Torrance Redondo area. Anyway, I had an uncle who was downtown Torrance when this happened. He's like a great uncle. And he said he was with a friend. They're walking down the sidewalk near this park, and the earthquake started happening. And they kind of sat down a little bit because it was pretty strong. He said he looked down the sidewalk and he could see it actually rolling like waves. And he said during the earthquake, he felt himself jump off the ground a couple times and land back on his butt, and it hurt. He said it must have thrown him a foot or two in the air each time. 1959, the Tibet Uprising. Fearing the Dalai Lama is going to be abducted, thousands of Tibetans surround the palace to prevent his removal. 1969, in Memphis, Tennessee, James Earl Ray pleads guilty to assassinating Martin Luther King. Later on, he tried to recant, and they weren't going for it. They basically let it stick. It was a strange thing about this years ago, probably in the 90s, when he was still alive. He actually got together with Dr. Martin Luther King's family, and they talked about how he was just a scapegoat for a bigger conspiracy. And they truly believed that he was innocent and he was just framed. He died in prison at the age of 70 on April 23rd, 1998. 1977, astronomers discovered the rings of Uranus. I am still an 8-year-old boy because I just want to make so many jokes when I see the name of that planet. Anyway, moving on. 2019, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302, a Boeing 737 MAX crashes, leading to all 737 MAX aircraft being grounded worldwide. This was a big fiasco. We've talked about it before. Boeing is still dealing with the fallout from this. Very interesting stuff online about it, how Boeing had optional things for these jets. So like if you bought one, you had to get this safety thing that was like, I don't know how much money. Let's say it was $100,000 more per plane, but it was software that would have stopped the plane from crashing the way it did. Well, this was the first of two where this happened, and finally all that came to light. Basically, the software, even if a plane was not stalling, it would sometimes think it was stalling and auto-correct it. And sometimes this led to it going straight down, and that's what happened. And I just broad brushed it, and I'm probably not totally correct, but that's the gist of what was happening with them. The reason I don't go more into detail, there's a lot of conspiracies about it, and there's a lot of misinformation, I guess you could say, or just conflicting information from Boeing's side and the FAA side and back and forth. Movies released on March 10th, 2017, Kong, Skull Island. Okay, so I was never like a scary movie guy, but I did like the monster movies when I was a kid. Godzilla, Gargantua, all of them. And King Kong was one of my favorites. I've watched all King Kong movies from the one in the 1930s or 20s, whenever it was, to these ones. And I love them. But this reboot of the King Kong franchise sees a team of scientists disturbing King Kong during the Vietnam War. Yeah, during the Vietnam War of all things. The movie was filmed close to the filming locations of Jurassic World in Hawaii. King Kong in this movie was only 104 feet tall. Later on, he goes on to another movie to fight Godzilla. Born on March 10th, 1940, Chuck Norris. If you don't know who Chuck Norris is, I'd like to welcome you from your 50-year-long coma. Chuck Norris is a martial artist who went on to star in television and movies like Walker, Texas Ranger, which was on forever, and then became an internet sensation in 2005 with memes based on exaggeration feats of his abilities, like Chuck Norris's tears can cure cancer. It's just too bad Chuck Norris never cries. He started off in martial arts when he was in Korea with the Air Force. He eventually created his own martial arts based on Tang Soo Do, which I went to his first karate school for a couple of years when I was a young kid. I was hyperactive, so my mom put me in all that stuff. I only saw him at the school one time when I was a kid. I was like 9 years old, and I thought he was this huge man. Years later, when I was at Machado Jiu-Jitsu, which is like a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Actually, Machados are their cousins. Chuck Norris was training with them. I got to actually wrestle with him, or we call it roll with him. And he was a lot shorter than I remembered as a 9-year-old kid. He was about my height. I'm only 5'9", and he's about my height. Really nice guy, though. His real name is Carlos Ray Chuck Norris. He was born on March 10th, 1940 in Ryan, Oklahoma. He joined the Air Force in 1958, did his time, got out in 1962, and ended up in Torrance, California, my hometown, where he applied to be a Torrance police officer. While on the waiting list, he decided to open up a martial arts academy, and it stuck. If you're ever watching Walker, Texas Ranger, the guys that taught me jiu-jitsu, they were on that show a couple times. Died on March 10th, 2009, we lost Jack Grimes. You may not know him, but he portrayed the character of Jimmy Olsen over the final 3 years of the radio show The Adventures of Superman. He also provided the voice for the animated TV series, The New Adventures of Superman, and he had a long career of voiceover work. He was actually Sparky and Chim Chim on the original Speed Racer. But he did normal acting jobs, not just that. He was on All in the Family, Ironside, Maude, and even Mayberry RFD. He was born in New York City on April 1st, 1926, and died on March 10th, 2009 at the age of 82 in Queens, New York. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. And go out, have a productive day, and be nice to each other.